Hello everybody, Jeff here. Wanted to walk you guys through some dealings in Lightroom Classic with file names. I generally have two different conventions that I use. One for team and individual shoots, which would be like a big league or an individual team at a school or those types of things. And then dealing with shooting action, or also in my case, we use the same naming convention at our old time portrait studio. And I'll explain a little bit more later, but there's a kind of a safety issue with keeping knowing that we're not going to be overwriting images that have the same name as a previous image. So let's get into that. The first thing I want to do is show you, so we're in Lightroom Classic, like I mentioned, and then in Finder. I like to run with two Finder windows open. So I have one that has my card that I just shot. So this is a photo shoot that I did a few days ago. I happen to shoot Canon cameras, but it doesn't matter that the way that they set up the thing is the same. So navigate to where the images are, choose where you're going to put them on your system. In this case, I have a working drive, a fast SSD that I work off of, and I set up my library folders, my folders here in Finder, to basically mimic how I want my catalog in Lightroom Classic to work. So here I've got 2019 CHS Wrestling, and you can see how that corresponds to, here's Wrestling, here's 2019 CHS. Now here I have T&I, Team and Individual. So I have yet to drop these images from the card into there, but we'll just do that. You can see they go over pretty quick. I'm using a fast SD card, and this Extreme 500 is a external SSD that speeds up the process. Now, in this case, this file right here corresponds to a particular kid. So I took the photos, and when I reviewed the images with the kid, they said this number is the one that I like, so I write that on the order envelope. It's critical that I keep that information. So I don't do any renaming or anything like that on any shoot that is of this type where the image number at the time of the shoot was critical. I just keep all that information over, just to make sure that the connection between the folder or the envelope that I had dealt with on the site at the shoot is in the same correlation with the images. Now, in the case of my cameras, the cameras I have allow me to use or to adjust the naming convention within the camera. That's not available on all cameras, so sometimes this would say IMG underscore. At least that's how the Canon does. So you have to be careful when you're doing that, because if your two cameras are close in photo numbers, you might have an overwrite situation. So you need to be careful. But in my case, I have each camera has a different naming convention. So this is CR2. I also have a CR1. So the two cameras can never have the same image number coming out of them. So that's just a little precaution that you get on the higher end cameras. Just more features and functions. It's not better images necessarily, but you get the idea. So in this case, now I have T&I, and you can see over here I do not have T&I. So it's super simple. All you do is grab the folder, drop it on top of the Lightroom icon, and it opens the import dialog. I want all the photos, so bring them over. It automatically will put them in current import, which is up at the top. I wish there was a way, and maybe there is, and maybe one of you will give me a comment as to such, but I wish there was a way that I could stop it from doing this and going straight to the folder itself, because I don't care about the what it thinks is the recent import. So here's the folder. Folders are the images are there. Like I had mentioned before, this particular image, for example, this photo number I wrote down on this kid's envelope, so I need to keep the correlation between this unique identifier and this face. The other situation that we have is when I'm shooting action, or in my old time portrait studio as well. We are the only ones that have seen the images out of the camera. We've not put any correlation of a particular image number into any record. So in that case, I want to make sure that I can't overwrite these images. In the case of this one, you can see 19, 12, 10. Those numbers, and where you make this change in Lightroom Classic is under File, Auto Import, and Auto Import Settings. Right here is File Naming. So what I do is I import the file into my computer. I drop it in a particular folder. I tell it I want to put it in a particular folder, and I want you to rename it using this convention. So where I got to this was this file naming. Mine's obviously already done because I've been using this for the better part of 17 years. In fact, I've been using it for 17 years. All of the years of existence of my business. But here it's edit. I use 2 characters for the year. So in this case, it's 20. Today would be 20. 2 characters for the month, 2 characters for the day, an underscore, and then a 4-digit sequence that is chosen more or less by the computer. It's chronological. So I use this convention because then I can cross-reference my calendar, which, who doesn't have a calendar now that we mostly all have smartphones that have calendars in them? But I can cross-reference my calendar with where I was on that date. Very simple. If someone were to give me a photo number. Same thing in my studio. I can go back, I know exactly what day, what month, and in my studio, we don't keep things by event like I do with my sports photography, but we keep them by day. So there's a corresponding day, month, year that we can very quickly look up an image for somebody. On the sports thing, I can cross-reference and say, well, I was at basketball on, here for example, on the 10th of December, I was at basketball. That's why I do this naming convention. You can choose the number to start with. This will roll over to 5 digits if you don't reset this. I tend to like to reset this at the beginning of the year just to give me an idea of where I am. You can choose metadata in here if you want to add information to the images, copyright, those types of things in the metadata, and then hit OK. So when you import something, what it's going to do is, we'll just go back in and show you. I'm going to drop them into this folder, which I'll show you that in a second. I'm going to have them renamed to this convention and put into this folder. In my terms, you can do this however you want, but in my terms, I put them in a folder called new, and then that means I can go into Lightroom, find the new folder, and say, this image is something that I need to deal with. I need to put it somewhere. Or in the cases you can see now, I haven't put this particular image anywhere because this was a basketball game. These are the cheerleaders, and clearly I don't want to put it in boys or girls basketball because it really belongs in a cheer folder. So I highly recommend this naming convention, guys. It saves you a lot of heartache. I can show you the folders here. Again, this is why I like to, in the scenario here, I could drag from the card to the folder. But in the scenario of when I import, if I'm importing from a single card, I will drag them from here, from the card, into the import folder, which I have dedicated here, which was written out in the thing, and I simply drop them into this area. If I have multiple cards I've shot on multiple cameras, then I will go into import sort. I will drop this card into the folder. This folder does not do anything. I'll drop them into this folder. I will put the next card in and drop them into here, and then I will sort them chronologically. Lightroom will do that for you, because in Lightroom you can set this setting down here at the bottom. This says custom order, but in actuality we want that capture time. So it'll set that, but what I don't want to have happen is this be 705 and this be 701, because the computer was faster at processing a smaller image, for example. So highly recommend this naming convention for anything that you're worried about that doesn't have some correlation to any record that you have. Like I mentioned before, I write the number for these wrestling photos. I write this kid's number. This kid's number right here goes on his envelope, and if I mess that up, then I've got a big problem. If you don't have that correlation, I would highly recommend this naming convention with the date, because it's very easy to correlate between where you were that day and the images on your screen. Hope this has been helpful, guys. If you got any questions, drop them in below. I'll be working on some other similar related workflow type things in other videos. Hope you check those out. Thanks again. This is Jeff at instaimage. I'll see you in the next video.